Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into some pretty heavy allegations found in our source material. This idea that there's a specific playbook for US-led regime change and how it's allegedly being put to use in South Asia.
Okay, let's jump right in with this. This is a quote from Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and wow, it's a bombshell. It really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. She is flat out accusing the United States of engineering her removal from power. So the big question our sources are asking is this just an isolated claim, or is it part of a much larger alleged pattern?
So the source material we're looking at really pushes this idea that claims like this aren't one-offs. Nope, it argues they fit into what it calls a systematic playbook that's been used for decades. So let's actually break down what this alleged strategy looks like step by step. All right, first things first, let's get on the same page. What do we even mean when we say regime change? Well, the formal definition is basically replacing one government with another using force. Now, that force can be obvious, like a military intervention, or it can be covert, think political and economic pressure. The core idea is that an outside force is altering who's in charge of a country. Now, according to the analysis we're digging into, this whole process isn't just random chaos. It's supposed to follow a very specific formula. So let's look at the actual tools they allegedly use to destabilize a target government. And here they are. This slide breaks down the 5 key tools that are allegedly in this playbook. You can see it's kind of a ladder of escalation, right? It starts with information warfare, propaganda, to paint the target government as corrupt or oppressive. Then it allegedly moves to directly funding the opposition and applying diplomatic pressure. If that doesn't work, the strategy supposedly ramps up to economic coercion, like sanctions. And if all else fails, military action, either directly or using proxy forces, is the final step.
Okay, so we have the theory. Now let's see where the rubber meets the road. How has this alleged playbook been used in South Asia recently? Because the region has seen a ton of political drama, and our sources claim they see a very clear pattern of foreign involvement.
Let's start with Pakistan. You might remember this. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan came out and publicly blamed the U.S. for his ouster. He tied it directly to his country's neutral stance on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And the smoking gun, according to the source material, is this leaked diplomatic cable. It supposedly details a conversation where a U.S. official basically tells Pakistan's ambassador that if they get rid of Khan in a no-confidence vote, things would get a whole lot better between Washington and them.
Now, over in Bangladesh, the story gets a little more tangled. You have Sheikh Hasina's very direct claim about refusing a U.S. military base. The opposition parties, they say, nope, that's not what happened. But here's the really interesting part that the sources point out. Even though they disagree on the why, the opposition does admit that it got a lot more financial and diplomatic support from the U.S. right around the time the government was removed.
And the pattern, according to our sources, continues in Sri Lanka back in 2022. Remember that massive economic crisis? Huge protests led to the president resigning. The analysis here highlights 2 really important things. 1, the country was getting closer and closer to China. And 2, that same U.S. diplomat's name, Donald Lu, pops up again, suspected of having a hand in the domestic unrest, which, the source claims, fits right into this broader picture.
So this all begs a huge question, right? What's the big picture reason for all this? The sources argue it's not really about these individual countries. It's about a much, much bigger geopolitical game.
And here's the answer. According to the analysis we're reviewing, it all boils down to this: a new great game, and the main objective is to contain the rise of China. The argument is that the Indo-Pacific is the new chessboard for global power, and all these political moves are just plays in that larger game. So what are the specific goals here? This slide lays out the alleged game plan, and you can see how it all connects, right? The idea is to weaken governments that are friendly with China, get military bases in key spots like the Indian Ocean, mess with China's big economic projects like the Maritime Silk Road, and, at the end of the day, expand U.S. influence all over the region. Okay, and this brings us to what might be the most explosive part of this whole analysis, the claims being made about India. As a major power with its own independent foreign policy, the source material alleges that India is also a target in this destabilization playbook.
So what exactly are these allegations? What does the source claim the U.S. is doing inside India? Let's break it down.
All right, allegation number 1, funding protest movements. The
The claim here is that U.S. agencies are using things like foreign aid to funnel money to different opposition movements and protest groups inside the country. The alleged goal isn't to directly rig an election, but to build up internal pressure and create instability from within.
Now, the second allegation is, well, it's a whole lot more serious. The source material claims the U.S. is actually supplying weapons to insurgent groups in the northeastern state of Manipur. And the alleged objective? To fuel the conflict and support the creation of a separate territory, which would obviously be a huge destabilizing event in a really critical border region for India.
And finally, allegation number 3. The analysis claims this isn't just about one region. It's supposedly part of a broader strategy to support various separatist movements inside India. The source specifically calls out support for Khalistani militant groups, with the supposed overarching goal of weakening the nation by fueling multiple internal conflicts.
So, let's pull all of this together. The source material we've walked through today presents these events not as isolated incidents, but as pieces of what it describes as a larger, ongoing pattern in modern geopolitics. So what's the big takeaway here? According to this material, it's that long-term strategic goals, primarily countering powers like China, are allegedly driving a foreign policy that fosters instability. The argument presented is that this is often done publicly under the banner of promoting democracy, while the underlying motives are claimed to be purely geopolitical.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy final question that this analysis raises. In this new era of intense global competition, is this kind of alleged foreign interference just the new normal? That's something to think about. We would absolutely love to hear your perspective, so please write down your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it to support the channel.